misreporting cases, possibility of subsection 6, there is a possibility that a real tax evader will go away. As I am saying, I am talking of what are the big bugs. The smaller one is going to get caught. What are the going to happen to the bigger one? The bigger ones probably will get out. The second possibility here of misreporting, you look at explanation 1 to section 270 or 1C. It had no explanation offered, false explanation, or not substantiated explanation. Now they are saying only one is here in 6. Obviously, other two are covered in the definition of misreported, misrepresentation of facts or suppression of facts. So really, I would say you increase the scope of the possibility of somebody escaping the penalty by giving an explanation that it falls in ABCD. Now in clause A, when they have widened it, that he has disclosed all material facts to substantiate the explanation. This was a question that came up. Subsection 6, which are the exemptions from the penalty, clause A, a difference with the earlier provision of explanation 1, and that is the SSC has disclosed all material facts. That was where explanation 1 ended, to substantiate the explanation offered. Now, which is the explanation that I need to be substantiating? That my explanation is bona fide. You have to only prove that my explanation is bona fide, and that is what is need to be substantiated. So really, I don't know what is the type of evidence that they are looking at to prove that the claim is bona fide. There was one more issue in clause 9 when misreporting is there. One particular item, group discussion, it has come up, so I'd like to elaborate that law is not as easy as departmental officers like to believe and draft. It says cases of misreporting, clause C, claim of expenditure not substantiated by any evidence. Let me tell you, not a single case will fall in this. Reason being, it says not substantiated by any evidence. You go to Indian Evidence Act and oral testimony is an evidence. The return of income signed by you on verification is a statement on oath, it's an evidence. An entry in books of accounts, though not conclusive, is an evidence. Entry in books of accounts, section 34 of Indian Evidence Act, says that is not an independent evidence. That is, it is an evidence, but you need some corroborative evidence to substantiate it. Here we are talking of a case, no evidence. So if somebody has filed a return of income and he has got expenses entered in his books of accounts, there is evidence. It is not sufficient to substantiate, to allow it in expenses in assessment. But as far as this is concerned, it will get out because you have gone too extreme, very extreme condition provided that there is no evidence at all in support of the expenditure. Not a single case, in my view, would fall in this. It's just an illusion they have created that yes, we are going to create. There seems to be a view that yes, we will treat every case as a misreporting case. So this again, I would say there is a big gap here between what they say and otherwise, yes, onus of proof. I would only tell you something that I learned when I read Dharmendra and after a few judgments after that. You know, the judgments before that, before Dharmendra, the law was Dilip Shroff, Ashok Pai, that mens rea is an essential condition for the purpose of penalty. Now, what does mens rea mean? I am no expert in Latin, but as far as I know, mens rea means guilty mind. That is, I did something very consciously to violate the law, a guilty mind. The guilty mind is there, mens rea. What does after Dharmendra the law is? That if your explanation is bona fide, you are not liable. Now, what does bona fide means? Bona fide means absence of mala fide. Really speaking, it is just use of words and the terminology that now I don't say that I have this absence of mens rea. I say, sir, the conduct is bona fide. According to me, in simple English language, it nearly means the same. The same way, when you are now going to deal with 278 show cause notices, take care that you don't use the language that you were using earlier. So don't use mens rea. Don't use that type of technology. Use the word they like to hear. So use the word, sir, my conduct is bona fide. It still answers the question. So really don't go to the concept of mens rea. We need to bury that completely. Let us talk of bona fide. It really means the same, that my conduct is bona fide. This, I think, is sufficient. Now, onus of proof. Clause A, misrepresentation cases. Clause A reads, misrepresentation or suppression of facts. Now somebody has to find facts which were suppressed. Who will find that? I am not going to go, SSE is not going to go, sir, I filed a return, now I suppress these facts. So somebody has to be there. Who is somebody? Assessing officer. So assessing officer has a burden of proof to find out there is suppression of facts. Misrepresentation of facts means I have said an X fact, somebody has to say no, it is Y. So again, who has to prove this? Assessing officer. Failure to record investment in books of accounts. This is the funniest of the provisions, I would say, because the most cases are where partially recorded investments are there. There was section 69, which said investments not recorded will be added. Within a few years they realized that this is inadequate. They came up with 69AB, that is, investment is in books of accounts but not fully recorded. They are only covering cases where investment is not recorded. Again, owners, somebody has to find this investment, assessing officer. Expenditure I already dealt. C. D. Recording any false entry in the books of accounts. The word false itself means that he has to say that this is a false entry. So it is again the onus of proof of the department. Failure to record any receipts of book of account having bearing on income, and failure to report, yes, if there is something is found, it is not recorded. But again, the primary onus will be on the assessing officer to come up that there is a failure. So according to me, misreporting cases still remain to be cases where AO will need proof. I think last point that I will take up with the time that is permitted, and that is the show cause notice. We are the state of Karnataka, and at least in Karnataka, all the cases where there is a standard notice issued under 271(1)(c), even under the old law, where it was concealed particulars of income or furnished inaccurate, following Karnataka High Court judgment in Manjunatha's case, invariably a standard show cause notice pre-printed, penalty is dropped. Penalty is deleted on the ground that there is no proper show cause notice. Now when you deal with a situation like 270A, two specific classes of concealment, you are having underreporting, you are having misreporting, my view, a specific show cause notice is essential even before he starts any proceedings. A show cause notice, this is just a pre-printed or a standard that it is underreporting, he will have to be clear, and before he concludes the penalty orders, if he is levying penalty for misreporting, he will have to show there was a show cause for misreporting. If he does something for underreporting, there has to be a show cause that there is underreporting. A mere standard notice does not suffice. A specific notice is going to be required. And this is where the question of 263 will also come up, though the commissioner has power, but I have my personal view. AO having done an assessment either as underreporting or misreporting, basically underreporting, even if there is a jurisdiction to 263 to initiate, question is where is the show cause to the SSE for the commissioner to come to that conclusion. Because for commissioner to come to that conclusion, there has to be some proceeding. That proceeding has already ended. My view, yes, possibility of 263, where AO has done underreporting, very difficult. About 270 AA, it is an illusionary thing. I'll tell you reasons, simplest of the reasons. The condition is, you have to accept the whole of assessment order. Agreed assessments are never acceptance of whole of the assessment order. It is a few of the items, or sometimes out of that item a particular percentage of that item. They say, for example, bogus purchases. So agreed assessments are never that the whole of the assessment is accepted. So it will be very, very few cases where an agreed assessment is there, where the SSE is saying, okay, I will not file an appeal at all. The provisions are 270 AA that you will not file appeal at all against the assessment order. And if your application is allowed, there is a clear bar on admitting any appeal or any application under 264. So only if you are accepting whole of the assessment order, then the question of 270 AA will come, which practically I think is not possible. Most cases that we see, it is not that whole of assessment is going to be accepted, but a particular addition or a part of this addition. Friends, this I feel some are major issues. If you look at what they have tried to achieve and what is going to happen. Frankly telling you, the case studies that I have given, maybe they are very simple. But in most cases of additions which are innocuous, that is, you had one view, you have done something in your return of income, and they have another view, there is an addition, the chances of penalty are much brighter, of even sustained are much brighter. As an order, yes, in all cases there will be an order. That happens even with 270 1C. As an order, every case it will be. But the chances there will be quite a few genuine cases where there is no attempt to evade tax. It's going to be a difference of opinion. The possibility of it being suffering penalty is much higher. But as I said, yes, still section 139 is there. We have the courts who will interpret the law, because the harsher a penalty, more lenient view the courts will take of the compliance with that. Friends, thank you very much for giving a patient hearing.
Friends, Karia speech was very illuminating, as we dealt with different situations possibly arising. We must remember our responsibilities as citizens of India. There is a social responsibility. Every person who is earning income must declare and pay tax. That is the least the law expects to do. If you take section 139 of the Income Tax Act, am I clear and audible? Am I clear now?
Yeah.
There is a social responsibility on every citizen to admit and pay taxes. Otherwise, the state cannot run. Where else will the government get the funds to go through their projects and all? When this basic principle is borne in mind, things will work out on its own. You take section 139, which enjoins every person to file a return of income truly and correctly, and the statements made, the particulars furnished, and every detail given is believed to be true to the knowledge, best of his knowledge. If this is borne in mind, 270A, those few cases where underreporting is deemed or misreporting is to be referred, is valid to place. If you analyze the provisions of 2001C as they were or as they would be after 31st March and 270A will come to now, what the government intended to do is to veer away from discretion being vested with the assessing officer and instead make things automatic as a natural consequence of events. As you know, we used to have section 215 interest, 216 interest, 217 interest. So they have been replaced with 234A, 234B, 234C. Except in rare circumstances, cases falling under the guidelines of the court, the interest will not be paid. Consequently, the moment an event has occurred, or whether you call it a default or not, if there is an underestimation, advance tax, underpayment of advance tax, or deferring to the advance tax installment, interest is automatic. This is what 270A seeks to achieve with regard to underreporting. The moment there is a difference between assessed income and applied income, the consequence is that you pay 50% of the tax attributable to that as penalty. They are virtually making it automatic. Though a so-called notice is required to be issued, the way the provisions have been drafted, the penalty for underreporting seems to be inevitable. Now, one point which was made was, if a revised return is filed within the time permitted, the penalty under section 270A can be avoided. Now, the point is, when will you realize that you have committed a mistake? Unless your attention is drawn. So you have filed the return in the usual course. The 143 proceedings are not taken up. Now, on your own, unless you reflect into your record and feel that you have committed a mistake, I should hasten to correct it. Otherwise, you won't have an occasion to file a revised return at all. And after the notice, once the assessing officer notifies you of any mistake, the question of filing a revised return doesn't arise. So this 138, although it is technically available, it may not serve the purpose because most of the time one would be under the belief that what he has done is awesome and taxing officer. Now the another issue which is to be examined is whether the notice is to be issued during the assessment proceedings or along with the assessment order or can be issued later. The word satisfaction is missing from 270A, which was there in 271C. Nonetheless, the use of the word during the course of any proceedings, direction to pay the penalty, which means the satisfaction is inferred there by reason of issue of the notice. The next thing which has to be borne in mind is whether the notice can be barred or it has to be specific. Whether the officer has to draw your attention specifically to what are the items of underreporting he is alleging or misreporting he is alleging. If he does not do that, then the notice will not be of any use and you can't be expected to answer a charge which is not made out. It's like a charge sheet. The officer cannot say notice under 278 and say that I am accusing you of underreporting, so cause why I should not have it. Or he can't just say I am accusing you of misreporting and so cause as to why I should not have a penalty. You will have to specifically draw your attention to what are the items of underreporting he is referring to and what are the items of misreporting he is referring to. Then only the so-called notice will be meaningful and it can be dealt with. The next aspect I would like to mention about is bona fide. What is bona fide? Is it just believing that what you have said is true or is it something more than that? Objectively looking at bona fide means in a similar situation, if somebody else is in your place, would you have done that? Would you have done what you have done? That's how it has to be done. Unless it is a tenable answer or a reasonable answer or something which can be reasonably made out from the facts of the case, you can't say that I have bona fide belief in that. It has to be looked at from the standpoint of a third person objectively. Still if you see 270A(9), which lists out various items of misreporting. Now there you can see a guilty mind or a deliberateness or mens rea implicit in that. Although one doesn't have to show, or the officer does not have to accuse you of a guilty mind, he is implicit in that. Now, as Karia made out, till Dharmendra electrical case, it was assumed or it was taken that mens rea is a necessary ingredient before any penal consequences are made out. The word penalty itself suggests that it is penal action. Penal action can only be for an action which is prohibited by law or forbidden by law. A bona fide error can never be accused of never be said to be having mens rea. But after the judgment in Reliance Petrol Product, where the Supreme Court clarified, though the rift of good law and Dharmendra electrical saying that it is bad law is not correct, nonetheless they said mens rea is no longer necessary since it is a civil consequence, not a criminal consequence. And where 276C is invoked for prosecution, there it is criminal and mens rea will have to establish. The standard of proof required for invoking 276C is far higher than the standard of proof which will have to be brought in for 278. Then coming to the poses which were discussed at length during the group discussion, I must say the involvement of the participants in the group discussion was really commendable because of the intensity of the involvement. They were considering every aspect very minutely, coming out with suggestions and answers. And by and large, there was unanimity in thinking and Now the next issue is about 270AA, whether really we have used or whether it is really meaningful. Now, there are no guidelines as to which are the cases where the officer can accept a claim and grant immunity. The two conditions, prerequisites for invoking section 270A are: one, you should not have heritage against the assessment order. Second thing, tax and interest repayment must have been paid. Now, if these two things are done, the officer is entitled to exercise the discretion and grant immunity. On what basis can he say, I will grant immunity in A case, I will not grant immunity in the B case? That means, the moment you have satisfied those two conditions, immunity may have to be necessarily given. And if the officer has to refuse to grant the immunity, he must give strong reasons as to why he is refusing to give. Consequently, it would mean that in the case of underreporting, one can get away with 50% penalty, 50% tax and penalty. It should not be justifiable on the part of an assessing officer to deny you the benefit of immunity on a selective basis, unless the board comes out with any guidelines or parameters saying that if the assessee's conduct in the past has not been fair, reasonable and honest, then it should not be granted. Or to say that if the assessee's conduct in the past has been good, then it can be granted. One has to wait and see how the board will react to the scheme of 270AA. This, I thought, are some of the observations I wanted to make, a remark on the scheme of 270A and 271C. I must thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to participate in these deliberations. I would like to close with one observation. There was a music concert, and a lady who participated in the concert came back home with 2 cups, one small cup big cup. Her mother asked, what are these cups for? She said, small cup was given because I participated in the music concert. And the big cup was given when I stopped singing. This is how I would like to conclude, and I am obliged to the organizers for giving me an opportunity to participate in this. Thank you very much.
We'll take the questions offline subsequently because we have other things in the lineup. Before now for proceeding further, today's group discussion led by the various group leaders, and it's a time to felicitate them. May I invite past president